that on every single time. I'm going to try to do this one as quick as possible, right? And I'm going to try to go to the process of getting it from um, outside of Blender into Blender and then into the game, right? Very rudimentary, very basic, and then show you that you can then go back and make a lot of changes that you want to make, right? So, right, a lot of times I'll try to get everything right on the way out. In this case, well, I'm not going to do that. So I went on DeviantArt. I was looking for some characters. I found this guy's channel right here. He's got some of he or she, I don't know, has some available things. They got this Misty Knight. I was like, all right, cool. So I downloaded it. I was lucky because this download has a blend file. Now, when you have a blend file, what you can do, so this is the actual blend file for there. I'm using 4.2 now, so I might run into some bumps along the road, and we'll see, and hopefully I can get those worked out. And if there's too many bumps, then I'll try to push through the process and then have to do another video later, right? But basically, what I did is opened up the provided one, made sure I selected everything. I'm gonna hit Control C to copy. I can just come over here and just paste it, and there it is. And this is what it looks like in that mode, just like I did before. And here we go. All right, cool. So you don't have to you should be able to do that with just about anything. Also in Blender 4.2, you can drag and drop stuff um, into the viewer now. Whereas in like 3.6, which I normally use, you still couldn't do that. I don't think you could do it in 3.8 either, but nonetheless. Okay, so I've got a body. This body is already rigged. If I go in here and I play around with the bones, I see that most of them move. I'm not sure why that one doesn't move. I guess depends on how the animation is set, but whatever. Alright, so my goal is going to be to fit this body to the Tekken body, right? So I'm going to find a character. Now, you can do the same thing that I did just now with the base blend meshes. I've created an asset library for it, which I want to put out, but I want to ask the creator of this blend file if it's okay first. But nonetheless, I'm going to bring it in where you can drag and drop your mesh. Alright, so it's really big. I'm going to make sure I've got it centered. Oh, 0. Okay, now this little mesh here, I'm going to click on the armature, and I'm going to use the armature to make it big, because if I click on the mesh to make it big, then it's going to have issues. So I'm just going to make her as big as possible. Oops, that's a little bit too big. Right? And we're going to switch to wireframe mode for a moment. And my goal is normally to get the crotch lines to match. So I want to find her crotch line and match it up with the Tekken crotch line. That usually gives me my best starting position. But she's still, you know what I mean? The dimensions are not matching very well, which is fine. So let's see, maybe I want to make her a little bit wider. So I'll hit let me turn on screencast keys as well. Is it on? How do I turn it? Shadow, background. It should be on. There you go. Alright, hopefully those don't block the view, but I can go ahead and close this. But let's find our mesh. Another thing to notice is that this body is all in like pieces, right? Not this one, but the other one. So I'm going to keep it on its rig for right now. I'm not going to take it off of its rig. If I can click on the bones, I can't click on them very well, so I'm just going to click on the armature here so I can kind of see them. And I can see that the body, if I go into here and turn on X-ray mode, see that the body is not the same width. Shoulders aren't really the same width. Let me go ahead and hit S and then X to scale her out a little bit more. Try to fill her up a little bit. Usually I try to get like the hip generally in about the same spot. And then I can also hit S and Z to make her taller if I want to. So maybe I'll do that a little bit. Really I want to try to get like the body proportions in line. She looks about the same width. If I look at them, let's see, grab this. Why is it not? Why is it not showing? Oh, maybe I didn't click on the right one. Alright, so click on this. Where is my gizmo? Oh, okay. When you start the timeline, your gizmo goes away. So I accidentally started my timeline by hitting spacebar. So my gizmo went away. So she looks about the same width. She doesn't look like she needs to be too much thicker. I'm going to see if I hit S and then Y, I can just expand her along this axis. And we'll make her a little bit thicker for right now while we figure out exactly how we want to do this. Um, and I'm still trying to keep the crotch line at about the same spot. And it looks like the shoulders are now at a good spot as well. Now the actual form of the body is not what I want, but that's fine. So now I want to go ahead and start moving the pieces around, right? I don't like this stick mode when I'm in this process or in general, so I'm going to go to viewport and I'm going to turn this into octahedral. It just helps me like see where the bones are and move them around. So now that I've done that, I'm going to go into pose mode, and they've got all kinds of colors and stuff on this one, but basically I'm just going to move the stuff. I'm going to hit X to see if I can do a mirror, and I can't because most likely these bones are named differently, or whichever bone this is. Shoulder 1L, and this is shoulder R whatever. So they don't have the same name, so it's going to be not easy to do. But there's a trick that I usually do for that. Usually I start with the legs first anyways. So for the legs, I'm just going to try to move the legs so that they're kind of in the right position. And I'm going to try to find I'm going to try to find whichever bones it is. Also, one of the and luckily the leg bones are matched. As you can see, they're working in symmetry, so that is a good thing. I'm going to go ahead and make a new layer here. I'm just going to call this pose bones, and then I'm just going to hit assign. That way, whenever I find a bone that works for me, I can just assign it. And what I can do then is I can isolate those bones later if I want to, right? So down here, like, I don't want to move that. I don't care about that. I can hide it for right now. I'm going to grab this bone. Nope, that's not it. Where is her leg bone? Is this her leg bone? It is, but it doesn't control this part of her leg either. So that's kind of annoying. But it looks like these two bones are important. So with those selected, I'm going to assign those. And I don't think it grabs the other side. It doesn't. So I'm going to grab these same two bones, right? And I'm going to assign those. So now if I look, I should just have those bones down there. Nice. And let me find her feet. I don't know where her foot bone is. So it looks like, there we go. That's her foot bone. So I'm going to grab both of these bones sticking out here. Assign those, and I'll grab the toes as well. So we'll grab the toe, hit click, click, assign. So now I have just these bones to play with, make it a little bit easier to pose her around. Now I gotta find some other major bones. So let's look for, so we have the shoulder bones, which I don't think I assigned yet, so I'll assign that. Here's my other shoulder bone. We'll assign that. Now I'm looking for her elbow, which is probably this. Yep, there we go. I'll assign that, and it's just called elbow. It's probably this one as well. So we'll assign that. And the hands I'm going to leave alone for right now. Now I'm going to look for some torso bones. She's got a unique torso thing going on here. I don't know if there's a bunch of, looks like there might be a bunch of bones not showing up in this list, but for the most part they look like they're all there. These, let's see what these are. So that's like a twist bone. Here's another like twisty bone. This is a real, okay, so her, I have no idea why her bones are over there like that. That's crazy. I've never seen anything like that where the bones are off to the side. That's insane. So I might have to make some changes. So we've got her shoulder bones, and it looks like this is a shoulder bone also, but they are not the right size. Like this is a really strange setup they've got here. But let's go ahead and assign that. And then let's see, she got a neck bone maybe? Probably up here. So the neck bone, let's assign those. Let me just look for just a head bone if I can. So here we go. It's like her face bone and the rest of her head. So these probably work together, sort of. But then, what are these, ear bones or something? No, her earring bones. I don't care about those too much. This is more of her jaw stuff. And then she's got hair bones to do whatever with her hair, which I'm not going to really mess with right now. Yeah, so let's take a look at her real quick. Alright, so there she is. There's a lot of her that I don't like set up right now, but we'll get to all that. So I'm also going to make sure that the bones are set up in front so I can see them. And there we go. So I want to go ahead and get the pose as close as possible right now. So I've got the leg part posed already. Let's go ahead and change this part. And so it looks like I'm going to have to maybe move these together. Yeah, okay, so I'm going to, let's see, how do I want to do this? I'll move the pant by itself actually to kind of get it to look straight. And normally I would go in here and take the same number, so I'm just going to type 7 to make it an even number, and then grab this and then move this over, and then just type in -7 or 7 depending on what works. That way it's pretty much the same on both sides. This rig is a little bit unique, so we'll see how this goes. I'm just going to move the legs over. Luckily these legs are synced, so that works. I don't have to copy the pose. And then the foot looks like it's turned a little bit, so I'm going to try to straighten it out. And it's kind of in line of where like the second foot is already, so I don't have to do a lot of messing around there. So that's pretty good for that. The body, I'm not sure exactly how I want to do the body per se, but we're going to just move this up a little bit right now to kind of like fit the form. And then I'm going to remember what this was. We'll say -10. And actually I could probably do it like a -11 maybe. Yeah. And then we'll do the same thing here. Because I think, what did I move? I moved this one. And then it was -11 that time, so I'll just do regular 11 here. And then we'll move the arm to match. And this one, the hands are matching up pretty decently, so that's a good thing. So I'm just going to go ahead and match that up. What's that, 10? Do the same thing here. And I'm using R to rotate. Keep in mind you want to make sure that you're looking straight on or whatever, because when you just hit R to rotate, it'll be rotating based on the view that you have. So if you're not in like an orthographic view, then you won't be moving on any specific axis or anything, so keep that in mind. So I'm just going to move this up, and I think we said 11 or 10. Okay, so maybe -10. There we go. Alright, so the hands are better moved. Shoulders are always a pain in the booty for me, so I'm going to want to move those. I want to keep the rotations as true to the bones as possible, so I'm going to go up here and instead of global, I'll use normal. And then I'm going to go to the actual gizmo for rotating. And I'm going to rotate on whatever is going to give me this type of lateral movement. And I'm just going to, oops, I didn't grab it right. I'm going to grab, actually it's a weird spin. I don't know why it's, this is a really weird rig. Let me see if I hit R and Z. Okay, whatever I was grabbing just wasn't right. So I'm gonna hit R and then Z because I want to rotate on that axis. Move it over. And let's see what I got here. This is like -11. And I'm just gonna do the same thing to this one. So R and then Z, and then I'm just gonna put in regular 11 here to match it up, because I want the arms and the shoulders matched up as much as possible. Also, like the underarm is a good part to keep matched up, but I can make some of those edits with like proportional editing if I want to. Okay, cool. So we've got the arm set up for the most part. We need this part to be matched up, like the overall wrist. And it looks pretty good as it is. Let me see if I can grab this blue one by itself now. Okay. So it doesn't look like I need a lot of changes. And let's see when this stupid thing pops out. So that was only like 2.5. So we'll do 2.5 on the Z. And so I'll grab the other side and do the same thing. So I can hit R and Z. I don't need to even look at it really. And I'll just type in negative 2.5. Okay, cool. So that's gonna line up my arms and stuff pretty well. So I'm kind of happy with that result. The head piece, that is definitely not right. So what I'm gonna do is take a look at it and see if the mesh itself looks distorted. So I'm gonna hide the second mesh, and here we go. So our head does look like it's a little bit lower than it should be. So I may want to do some editing to move this up. Let's see what I can do with the bones themselves. So will it let me just move it up? And it looks like no, I'm not getting a lot. I can get some lateral movement, but that's about it. Let's see if I move the shoulder up. It's not really helping me either. But that's fine. The general position of the body is looking good. I feel like these shoes are a little bit weird. I'm just gonna move them. They look really thin, you know what I mean? But maybe that's just the character design, I don't know. Alright. So I am gonna make some edits to her head. I believe, I'm just not exactly sure how I want to do it. But the goal is to get the body as lined up as possible. What you're gonna run into often is the hands not matching up very well. So there's a couple of things that you can do to address that. I created an add-on that I'm working on to really help with the hands, but hasn't been super successful. So I'm going to show you how I would do this manually to get this essentially the same effect. Once the body is in a position where like it's solid, I would suggest saving your blend file so that you have it good, and then I no longer need my bones or anything else, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and apply all my transforms. Okay, and it moved the arm a little bit for whatever reason, I'm not sure why. So before I do that, I'm going to deselect this, deselect that. Wait, what? I just want to select all of her body parts. So all of her body parts, I'm going to go and convert to mesh. I'm going to make sure I don't have any things on here, but I'm going to convert to mesh. This will apply all modifiers as well. So essentially I just applied all of the armature modifier. And now I'm going to hit A and control all transforms, and that keeps her good. But if I remove her from her body, I don't think it'll look right. So let's do that. We're going to go ahead and go to parent and hit clear parent. Oh, and it stayed in the right place, so that's definitely a good thing. So it stayed in its right place because after I converted the mesh, I applied all the transforms, so it didn't need to switch. If I hadn't applied the transforms, especially to the rig, her rig, then her rig is still really teeny tiny. So she would have shrunk or got real big or something crazy. But I digress. So let me hide these bones. Okay, so we've got her set up like so. And let's take a look at her real quick. Now I don't know what's going on with her neck. Um, but I'm gonna split this up a little bit more because I just want the body right now. I'm just gonna do a body mod, right? So let's go into edit mode and let's see if we can separate her neck area. I made L, which is selects all linked stuff, and it looks like this is an easy cut. So I'm gonna actually select L over. Actually, we're gonna turn off that real quick. L. Let's see. So the UV maybe is a better option. All these pieces are like not connected, which is really annoying. And I'll show you a fix for that in a moment. But I just want to isolate those parts right here real quick. That way when I separate her headpiece, it'll be a lot easier. So I'll turn on X-ray mode. If I hit A, you can see that these are all the parts of this mesh, but I want to keep this part. So, but I want to get rid of these top parts. So I'm going to go ahead and select I don't want to do this. Let me go back. Let me unhide everything. Okay, so I want all of this stuff, right? I'm going to hit Control L, and anything that you have selected, it will try to grab that, right? And I want to get the rest of her neck piece here, and I think she has a top here. Cool. And I'm going to hit H to hide it, and it looks like that is everything. If I hit A, I'll see if I missed any parts, which it looks like I did. So I want to hide that. Turn on X-ray mode again just to make sure I haven't missed any parts. Cool. Alright, now with all of this selected, I'll go ahead and separate those selections so it's just a part. Alright, nice. And I'm just going to select it looks like her hair and these parts are connected for some reason. So let me split this up. Or this piece here, I want to split this up. Or I don't want the headband and stuff in my body. So edit, and I'm going to just select all of these in X-ray mode, hit Control L, and then hit H to hide it. I'm going to hit A to look for everything, and it looks like everything's good. So since these ones are all selected, I'll go ahead and separate those. Separate. Alright, so now I just want to put these to the side for a little bit. So I'm going to just select all these headpiece parts, anything that's related to the head. I usually hit H to see if I got everything, which it looks like I did. And then I can hit M, I believe, and create a new collection. And I'll just call this head. We'll call it head parts. Alright, create. Now that's going to allow me, it's going to create a little collection for it over here. And I can hide it so I don't have to see it, right? Now here's the body. Alright, the body is a bunch of pieces. And they may or may not connect cleanly. It looks like they may in some parts and they may not in other parts. So I'm going to see what I can do. And it's never fun when the body is in pieces like this. It's really annoying. But whatever. Alright, so I'm going to delete. I'm going to yeet the armature at this point because I don't need it. If you want to save anything, which is a good idea to save things, put them in a collection and call it like storage or whatever. But there we go. We got the body. And I don't think I'm going to do anything but a very primitive weight paint because right now I just want to get my mod from Blender into Unreal Engine and then into the game. I don't care how it looks. I don't care about materials right now. I can fix all of that after the fact. I just want to get it from point A to point B correctly, right? And from there we can make a bunch of edits. So I've got this body. Cool. I need to grab my Tekken body, which is here. So these are the bones for my Tekken body, and then this is the actual Tekken body right there. Alright, cool. Now some of these weights are going to be off, but there's going to be ways to fix them. But ultimately I need to go ahead and just transfer them over, right? The hands don't match up good. They're not going to look good when I put them in game. That's fine for now. So I'm going to hide the armature, and I'm going to make sure everything, all transforms are applied, everything's in the right spot. I'm going to click on the body, and then I'm going to hold shift and then click on the mesh. Now in this case the mesh is a bunch of pieces, right? Like it's not all one piece, so I need to fix that real quick. So I'm going to select all of these pieces, and I don't know if I want to make it permanent, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit shift D to duplicate all of those, and then I'm going to right click and join, and that joins all of them into one piece. And I'm just going to say full body mod, right? There it is. And I'm going to hide all the little pieces, and actually I'm probably going to put all these little pieces in their own section. So with all of them selected, hit M, new collection. I'll call body parts. Oh, that way I can hide that as well. And the only thing I have left is this single body here, right? And there are definitely things that need to get fixed with this body, but like I said, do that later. Like, her butt is way too high. But whatever. Now, when you want to join your stuff together, I'm going to hit backslash, which is a quick way to just isolate whatever you selected. I'm going to select all of these, and I'm going to look, and hopefully this has boundary loops, right? I can go up here to select, and I'll make sure this is set to like lines. And I'm going to go to select loops, boundary loops. And these are all like the edges of all of the different little mesh parts, right? And I'm going to go to mesh, cleanup, merge by distance. Now it's going to try its best to connect things as long as they're within this range of each other. This should help to close up a lot of pieces on your mesh. Now this method is better than selecting everything and doing the merge by distance, because sometimes it'll grab things that are extra close that aren't disconnected. You can also see that now my normals are all kind of messed up. If I look in here, they look really bad. You can fix that for the most part by just hitting A and then Alt N and then averaging by face area, and that would usually do a pretty good job of cleaning up all of those normals. If you have a bunch of blue lines all over the place, those are usually going to be like sharp edges, and they may or may not look right. I usually get rid of most sharp edges. Now I don't know where this body part is. There it is. I don't know why it was missing. So I made A again. I'm gonna hit select loops. Where is it? Boundary loops, and there's still some left, right? Which is fine. But I'm just gonna run that one more time. So mesh, cleanup, merge by distance, and then let's go ahead and, oh look, her boobs got really like flat looking, but we can fix all of that like I said. Oh, and I want to fix my normals. A, Alt N, average face area, and I'll fix them for the most part. Some of them look still kind of meh, but we'll see. The other thing I normally do is then I go ahead and turn tries to quads. It'll help if I want to subdivide things later. So I go to tries to quads, and then I make sure compare UVs is on, so that way my UV maps don't get messed up with my textures. I usually use compare seam and then materials as well. And then I'll leave the other settings as default. Cool. And so now I've got this setup. Right. A lot of these pieces are probably still not connected, but we'll see. And we'll go into making it look better if possible in the future. But let's go ahead and get weights on this thing now. So I'm going to go ahead and unhide my Tekken body, or I'm going to hit backslash so that my stuff shows back up again. Right. And this, like, I look at this. This neck is nowhere even close to the right position. Booba's all jacked up. But I'm going to transfer the weights anyways. So I'm going to click on the Tekken body. I'm going to hold shift, click on my now joined body, and we'll go to weight paints with both of them selected. We'll go to transfer weights. We'll go to the vertex mapping, switch it to nearest face interpolated. We'll change our active layer to name, and we'll make sure this is set to replace. Okay, what that's going to do is it should have transferred all of the weights from the game onto here. Now, I'm using a common mesh, right? So I'm using the MSL PRP mesh. What I've done is I've added the weights from the PRP mesh to my MSL mesh, and that's how I have what I have. But normally, or what a lot of people do, is they'll grab the weights from the MSL and then they'll transfer weights to another version of the mesh for the PRP, right? Because when you're using a common item, you have to use this base mesh, and then the game will switch it to whatever character it gets applied to. If you're not dealing with a lot of physics, this is a really good option. If you are doing something with physics, then using a character specific mesh instead is the case, and you don't need to do any PRP stuff. What I think I'm going to do is I'm going to use a tool. Nope, I'm trying to make this, yeah, I'm going to make this simple. So I'm going to use a tool and kind of make it so that I can work with a specific character. So let's see, what character do I want to use? We'll use, I'll just say, I think she's here, or Reina. I don't have anything for Reina really. Or let's see, go with Nina. Alright, so this is a Nina MSL mesh, which means this is set to Nina's body. And we're going to make sure that's set to 0. Right, and you can see the bodies don't match up, right? The common is a little bit smaller than Nina's. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this common. Well, first I'm going to grab this mesh I just added weights to, and I'm going to parent it to this MSL that I initially set it up for. So grab this. Now because I'm in the outliner, I'm going to hold control and then do it. And then I'm going to parent armature deform. That's just going to put the body onto the bones, right? Now if I go into here, and let's just isolate all this stuff for a second, hit backslash. If I go into here and I go to pose mode, I can grab like an arm and I can move it around, and everything should work pretty well. I'm getting a little bit lag in this because I think this body has a bunch of modifiers on it, so I'm going to turn those modifiers off for a second. There we go. Go back into pose mode. There we go. Now I get a lot. And as you can see, this body has all of the weights of whatever. And if I want to see the bones, I'll set this to in front. Now I can see these bones and move it. Now it's not the best weighting right now, but that's okay. I just want the bones, everything working. I'm gonna hide the Tekken version, and now you can just see. There we go. It looks like I got a lot of this not in the right position. So we are definitely gonna need to do some fixing. But it's on there. Now this is a step that you shouldn't have to do if you're using an MSL or an MSL only, which is what I suggest for your first one. Then you won't have to do this next step. But I'm going to use a tool that I created that I hope to have available at some point in the future, which will match some bones together. So I have, hit backslash, put these out, and so we have these bones, which are Nina's bones, and then we have these bones, which are the common bones. So I'm going to select these, and I'm going to use this match rigs option. And what it did is it took all of the bones and matched them to Nina's bones in the form of a pose. And so what that's going to allow me to do now is I can take this mesh and I can once again convert it to mesh or apply the armature. I can then clear the parent, and this mesh, this bone setup, it's a pose, so I can hit clear and it's back to normal. Right? If I wanted to save it, I could go down here to my asset library, set it to current file with all of my bones selected, go to asset, create pose, and there we go. And then I can name that pose I'll say base to Nina. Right, so now if I clear this, if I want to go back and do the same thing with these bones, I can just double click this and it does it. Right. Okay, but I'm going to hide these bones for a second because I don't need them. So now I've got this body better matched up to Nina. It's still way off. You can see the crotch is nowhere near where it's supposed to be. All kinds of things need to get fixed, and I'll fix that later. But I just want it on her bones for right now. Alright, and it's not on her bones. I need it now. It's not parented to anything. You see it's not under any structure. I'm going to go ahead and parent it to Nina's bones. So I click it, right click, parent, armature deform. Here we go. And now, if I hide my Nina body, we've got Nina's bones here. I can go into pose mode and I can move stuff around. Oops. Hey, stop it. There we go. See, moving. Horrible legs. Alright, but that's that. Also, we've got all of these materials on here, which, or not a lot of materials, but a bunch of them. And we got a weird shader that we're going to work with later. But for now, I don't care. Right? Because I'm not even going to put real colors on this thing right now. Alright, so now that I've got that set, I need to make sure that my scene is ready for export. So I'm going to go to, and when you're trying to figure out if your character is the right size, you can use the character that you reference as like your main point of view. So when you drop it in, drag and drop it in, it should be the right size. If you look at your mesh, I think you can look at the height here. Look, it's about 130 or 230 meters, I think, because it's super tall. But the body itself is in about the 140 to 170 range. If you're not in that range, it's probably not the right size. And this is meters, right? 140 meters. Why is it so big? I have no clue. But I'm going to go ahead and switch this for a second. I'm going to switch this to 0.01. And you can see it drops down to about 101.53 meters. And then I'm going to change this to centimeters. And now it's about 153 centimeters. So that's the range you're looking for. Your character should be about 140 to 170 if you're talking about the taller like male characters. But I digress. So my scene is set up in that regard. Now it's time to get the mesh out of here. How you want to set up your export settings is completely up to you, but I'll show you what I got. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select both of these. I'm going to check to make sure that it's parented. I'm moving it around like boop. I already moved some of the arms, so I know that's good. I always check if my faces are in the right direction, so I click on this. All of these should be blue. You'll see some red in here. That red is the opposite side of the face that's not visible. So we want to make sure that all of this is blue that needs to be. Turn that off. Like I said, make sure both of these are selected. And now I'm going to go ahead and export FBX. I have export settings already set up. And I use selected objects, which means that whatever selected is what gets exported. You can use visible objects, but that means you have to make sure only visible stuff is selected, and that could get a little bit weird sometimes because things sit in like a hierarchy. So something might not be visible. some things you might miss. I just think it's a little bit messier, it's a little bit harder. And then active collection is if you had, say, if I wanted to just export everything that was in this collection, I could do that as well, right? So I could put these in the collection and export them, but it's whatever. But I use the selected objects option, and I have it set to forward, negative Z forward, and up is Y up. I apply the units, I use space transforms. In geometry, I make sure it's set to face. I apply whatever modifiers that I have for it. I also usually triangulate faces and tangent space. Whenever I'm doing the MSL in PRP, I will sometimes turn that off um, because it helps to make sure that your vertex count, which is very important when you're using the common setup, is equal. But we're not dealing with that right now. Armature, I have the primary bone as the y-axis and the secondary bone as the x-axis. Do not set it to only deform bones, or you won't get all of the bones for your things. Add leaf bones, that needs to be off. I don't know why that's on. We do not want to add leaf bones. I'm going to create a preset. I'm going to default UE export, and that should override the existing one. Okay, good. Because for whatever reason I had add leaf bones and only the form bones set. I don't remember seeing this option in older versions, so I'm gonna have to see what it is to see if it works or not. But let's go ahead and get Unreal Engine started. Launcher. And of course, I'm assuming that you've already got your engine set up. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna fix her proportions, because what is this? This doesn't make any sense at all. Oh, did I actually save it? Let me see. I don't think I actually saved it, so let me go ahead and make a new folder for it. We'll call this demo, and what is her name? She has a name. Misty Knight. So we'll call this MMM Misty Knight. Alright, we'll just go SKMMM Misty Knight MSL only. Alright, so these are my settings. We're going to go ahead and export that. I'm good. And I'm not sure if I did it right, so I'm going to hold shift and do it again. Oops, let's go back. Make sure I have my thing set. I use the same name. Boom. There we go. Alright, so we're done with this for right now. Let's go into Unreal Engine. So I have a working folder that I build all of my mods in. So that's where I always start. I create a folder for it. Let's try to stay organized. So we'll call this one Misty Knight. Actually, we'll call it MMM Misty Knight. Right, and I'll just import it in. So let me find the folder, and we'll grab it in. So these are my settings for import. It should say skeletal mesh. If it doesn't say skeletal mesh, then for whatever reason your stuff isn't parented, and it's not seeing that you have a skeletal mesh attached to your rig set to your mesh. So if it pops up like this, then make sure you just cancel out of it, go back into Blender and just double check that you got it in there. You can select your skeleton. Since this is the MSL only, we're just going to use the MSL. I'll search for it in the whole setup for Weather Peaks project, and I think if you follow my guide, you have access to these base bones. Um, I don't deal anything with this. Preserve smoothing group, so you have checked on if it's not already on. This should be on by default. If you haven't done it, change your normal import method to normals and tangents. If we go down a little bit further, usually it'd be like create a physics asset. You do not need to create a physics asset. You can create one later if you're going to be using it, but there's no reason to just have extra stuff in your mod or in your engine. So I suggest to turn that off. Import animations, we're not doing animations, so that should be off. Import meshes and bone hierarchy, that's important, so keep that on. Let's see, bone tracks, I don't know what that is, just keep it as default. That's default, that's default. Let's go down a little bit further. Convert scene, that's default, you don't need to change anything. Let's see. Alright, so for materials, I have it set, I think it defaults to local, but what I have it set is to all assets, which means that if for whatever reason I already have a material with the name that's on my Blender import object, it'll look for it and put it on there, as long as the names match. So that's why I have that set up. I also have it set to do not create materials. It is not hard to create a material, and I've run into more accidental issues with it creating materials or trying to create material instances. If you want to try that, you can have create new. Do not have it create new materials. You cannot use the material as it stands right now, so just don't. Create new instance materials will create an MI, and you can find whatever MI you want to use as your parent MI, if you know what you're doing. In this case, I say just bypass it until you know what you're doing. Say do not create materials. I don't choose import textures either because it doesn't always grab all of the textures. It's going to try to use whatever information comes over from Blender. Sometimes it's just not correct. So I just do the import of textures on its own. Invert normal maps, you can have it do that if you want to. That's completely up to you, whatever. And then reorder material to FBX order, I keep this checked on, and then I'll hit import. There we go. Now I shouldn't get any errors. I shouldn't get any hierarchy errors or you need to merge bones or any of that. If I do, something is not right. What I want to do right now is now check just to make sure that my stuff is good. So I'm going to right click on it, go to skeleton, go to assign skeleton, and I'm going to search for that MSL, right? Boom. If I click on this MSL, these should all match up. If these do not match up, then something is not right. All right, you should have a 0 red in this situation. The only time you should have red that's acceptable is if later on you're dealing with physics, bone physics, and you've added bones to your mesh for the purpose of using physics. Those will inherently not be in the base skeleton, and it may ask you to add them to the list. But you do not want it to break your hierarchy. Otherwise, you'll get all kinds of weird things. You might be stuck in a perpetual T-pose. You might have just really deformed animations. So that's one of the things you want to be double checking. Alright, so here's our mesh. Good stuff. I don't have anything on it. Another thing you want to look at is your size. If you bring this in at the wrong size, then you're gonna get this view from way out here, and your character is gonna look the normal size, but this little square is gonna be super hard to see. It's gonna be real little. The other option, if it's too small, of course, it'll be super zoomed in. So this should be looking like this, where I've got a character on a pretty wide square, about half. You know what I mean? Just look like this. If it doesn't look like this, it's probably way too big. These are my different materials that we have. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create these materials as material instances real quick. So to do that, I usually copy the names. I like to use the exact names that are on my mesh. You don't have to, but that's what I do. I'm going to right click. I'm going to go to material instance, right? And I just name it that, right? So now I'm going to click on this, and now I need to set a material to it. Now, if you followed my guide, then it would have taken you to my emulated materials pack, and you could use that. If you have that, if you don't have that installed, use whatever materials I guess are in whatever project you're using. I can't really help you. Peak has some materials I think already in his. I think the same thing with Konji's. I just don't remember what they are. But for my materials, you can find those by going to character, item, uh, shared, preset materials. And these are emulated preset materials from the game. And you can use these as your parents. So I would click on this and click on this. And then it will give me a bunch of options. These are all default options. All of these textures are in the game, but this is essentially what your stuff is going to look like in game. That's the way I built it, using a lot of these default parameters. So if you want to change things, you'll have to add in your own textures and do whatever. But right now I'm not doing any textures, so I'm just going to save like that. Cool. And now I don't need to be in this section anymore. Alright, let's go back to wherever I made it. So here it is. So here's that first material instance that I made. I'm going to go ahead and just drop it on the section. And you can see that it shows up there. That's just white. It's all good. I'm just going to go ahead and copy this. I'm just going to duplicate this because it's the same. I'm not going to add any stuff right now. We'll add that all later. With it selected, I could just hit this arrow as well, and it will just place it there. So I'm going to do it that way, and I'll just duplicate, name it, still selected, click. Another way is you can search for it. So once you've created it, so I just created this one, I've unselected it, so, and I'm half blind, so I can't see what these things say. So I can click on this, paste that name in there, and then there you go. That's the same one. So we've got materials on here. We'll go over materials in the next parts. But for now, let's just put some materials on our mesh. Nice. So there's that. So the mesh is essentially set up. Oh, another thing that I always do is I'll search for UV and make sure use full precision UVs is set on. It makes things look better. I don't know why or how, but it does. So suggest it. It'll ask you sometimes about this level of detail changes. I don't know why it does that in UE5, but it doesn't hurt anything. If you've got a plus sign, that means your stuff isn't saved. So make sure you save your things often, because it is not uncommon for UE to crash, and then whatever you haven't gotten saved, you lose, right? You know the deal. Alright, so I'm going to make some folders real quick. So we'll make a meshes folder, and I'll drop my mesh in there. Now because this is all custom stuff, I can keep them in this separate folder. But certain things I won't be able to, which I'll go over in just a moment. I'll move that here. I'm going to create a textures folder, even though I don't have any textures just yet. And I'm going to create a folder I like to call items. You can set yours up as any way you want. You can have it all in one folder if you want to. That's up to you. I try to keep it as organized as possible because I got a lot of projects running at the same time. So, items. I need 4 items to get this into the game. I need to create a base character item. I need to create a base item. I need to create a customized item, and I need an IP. So the cool thing is, usually I'll open up the IP, and I'm just going to drop these other ones in. And as you can see, it says customized item. Drop that in. I can't put these in the wrong spot. See, they're red. So I've got a base item. If you duplicated it, right, you thought you could make like a base item and a base character item and just rename them, you won't have a place to put it. Like if I have 2 base items, it'll be like there's no place to put a second base item. So make sure those are all set. I do that just so that my IP is just filled out and I can fill it out later. I don't name it or anything at this point. I just have it there. Now I want to go ahead and just, usually I'll give a name to my stuff. So the game uses BCI to show that you're dealing with the BCI. I suggest you do the same, but like I said, do as you see fit. So I'm just going to call it BCI MMM Misty Knight. And I'm going to hold shift, copy these. Base item, oops, we're going to fill that out in a second, but base item, I'm going to click on it. Can't have the same name, but this is going to be BI for base item. And then a similar situation here, except I'll call this one CI. Now, I am not doing any coloring with this mod right now, or probably in the future. But for right now, I'm not using any coloring. So this is just going to be a blank thing, right? I'm not going to fill out anything in this one. I'm just going to leave it as it is. But it still needs to be in here. You can also see that the name's updated, right? So I put all that stuff in there, and instead of just being the neutral names, they've all got updated names. The BCI, you can put your fighter ID in here, and if there's other stuff you can use this for, but for the most part, for a simple basic mod, there's nothing else you need. You don't even need to put the fighter ID in here. I don't even know what it does. I used to put it in, but I don't put it in anything anymore. So makes it really simple, right? So these ones are pretty much done, or they are done. The BI takes a little bit more stuff. So for the BI, I need to set my position ID. You can find the position ID for your section by looking on my GitHub, or I believe it's listed on Tekken Mod somewhere as well. But my GitHub is just CDDT Reborn. Look for the Tekken 8 resources, and in the Tekken 8 info dump, I've got this list here for your position IDs, and this is going to be a full body, and so it's full body, and it's going to be position ID 6. So I'll go in here, just make sure this is a 6, and we're good. You want to make sure that you got the right type of mesh type in here. Skeletal mesh is default, I believe, and in most cases that's what we're using, so just keep that the same. Your muscle rig and your proportional rig. So as I was talking about the MSL and PRP, your MSL is always going to go into the muscle rig section. So find your mesh, just drag and drop. It's probably the fastest way to do it. This option clears the field, so I can click on this and also hit this arrow, or I can search for it. So those are 3 ways to load any assets in Unreal Engine. Alright, the rest of the stuff I really don't need. There is a bust option that you can add if it's a female character, and that's here in the Phoenix Dynamic Bone Binaries item. I believe that Peak has this in his folder, so you should be able to grab it from Peak's folder, and it is located in the game or the content character item shared skeleton folder of his projects, I believe. So just bring it over to your project if it's not already there. But all this does is it tells the game to look for whatever bust stuff is set for that character in game and apply it so that you get some movement. If you don't use this, then your character has no bust movement. So it's whatever. Most of this you can just ignore for now, especially if you're just starting. Disable mouse is a thing that's been turned on right now, and you want to make sure your project has this disable mouse option in it whenever you make your BI. If you open your BI and it's not in there, then you probably don't have an updated project. So if you've already done all this setup and it was pre 1.11 patch, you're going to need to make some updates. I've got a guide on my GitHub to show you how to do that. If you haven't set anything up yet and it's fresh, then you can just grab Peaks because he went ahead and did it for his. So that's your option, and I've got that information on my GitHub as well. And thanks to him for setting all that up. Is common item, for the most part, from my understanding, it's only going to trigger the positioning of the skin color, right? So if I was using a in-game mesh as my base body, I can use the default female material instances. Then I could use this common item, and then if I load it to Zafina, I'll get Zafina skin. If I load it to Nina, I'll get Nina skin. If I load it to Xiao Yu, You get the point. Same thing with the guys. If you're dealing with guys, it's just a white skin. But if I load it to Devil Jin, I'll get Devil Jin skin. If I load it to whatever, the game does that automatically, and you don't have to worry about it. Um, if you're using that base setup. But I'm not, so I don't need to check that. So we'll hit save, and that's pretty much all I need in there. So I've got all the pieces except for setting up my item prefab. Now my item prefab, I don't get to name whatever I want to. The only time I would get to name this whatever I want to if I was making a custom preset or a customized set asset, which is essentially the presets when you're choosing your character, the default ones, the 4 that the game has. I'm not doing that. This will be something you can choose in the customization mode. So I need to replace it. Now the character I'm working with for this one I said is Nina. I know her abbreviation is KAL, but you can look on my site. I have most of them, but not all of them listed. I had their ID numbers, and then I said screw it. But for Nina, Cal, right? On Tekken mods, they do have a full list with the newer characters, including I think the monk and whatever. So if you need those character IDs or abbreviations or whatever, that's where you'll find them. But for the most part, this is the general one, all the way up to Lydia, I believe. And I'll go in and update this at some point in the near future as well. But that's where you find it. So I'm going to switch over to F model now, because I need to name F model. Why is F model? I don't know if this shortcut is working right now. We'll see. Oh, it is. Alright, cool. Whatever. Okay, so an F model. Let me make sure I'm using the right directory. I'm not. So I'm gonna switch this to Polaris. I'll look at a bunch of different things. So, what? All right, you know what? I'm not doing that again. Okay, so you can open up all if you want to, or you can open up multiple. I usually use multiple and try to avoid opening up things that are like mods that are made. But like, see, this is a mod that someone named 4001. But for the most part, everything under 500, it's not typically a mod. I can deselect these if I want to. And what this will do is it's just going to load these packages. All right, load. And these are the packages from the game. I'm going to open up Polaris, go to content, and I'm going to go to character, and then I'm going to item, and then item prefab is what I'm looking for. And I want to go to my character abbreviation, which is Cal, K-A-L for Nina. And I'm going to be putting her in a BDF position, a full body position. So I'm going to open this up, and I'm going to look at the options that we have. So it has all the options, whether you have them unlocked or not. But put it on one that you don't have locked, because it doesn't unlock them, and you won't have access to them. Like, I don't have Halloween, I don't have any of these other ones. But I do have all the basic ones. So, but I'm just going to use the 1P option for this demo. And the 1P is not that one. Where is 1P? This is 1P. You can see the game has their own stuff in here. I don't care about any of that. I just need this name. So I'm going to copy this. And I'm going to name that. Boom. And actually, before I name it, I'm going to make sure I have a folder to put it in. So I'm going to item, and I want it to mimic it. So if I look at F model, if I can open it up again. If I look at F model, go back to Polaris, right? We've got Polaris, which is essentially this, and then it goes directly into content. So this file structure, I need to make sure I have in my engine. But we're starting at content, right? So content, character, item prefab. I have one for there, BDF, in here. I already have one in here. I usually check to make sure I don't have it repeated before I do it. That's why I waited. So now I can grab this and I can just drag and drop it into that BDF folder. I'm not going to copy it. I'm going to actually move it. Boop, boop, there it is. And now I want to make sure I name it. There we go. So the game is going to, and we're going to put this in our mod. So this is going to override the 1P IP in the game. And the game will now open ours, because I'm going to put in the mod. And then it's going to go to these locations to look. And what I mean by these locations is when I hover over top of this, it tells me where they're actually located. So game, reborn. So game is essentially like the same thing as like content. It can be switched. So content and then reborn folder. Right. Oh, nice. Now everything is placed where it needs to be placed. So now it's time to make the actual mod. To do that, I'm going to right click within my folder at like the top folder section for it. I'm going to right click. I'm going to go down to miscellaneous. We'll go to data asset, and I'm going to type in primary or parts of it and create this primary asset label. Nice. Now I'm going to name my mod. I'm going to look and see what number of mods I have because I always forget. So 7084 I think is the highest one that I've done. Yes. So I'm going to, and I'm going to turn these mods off for a second. Using my little tool here. And this tool is available on TechMods.com, I believe, as well on my GitHub, but I'm deactivate it. There we go. That just turns all the mods off. Yeah, essentially what it does is add this little -X at the end, which means it won't be read by the game. But I'm going to make a new folder. New folder. Also keep in mind that if any of these mods are being loaded in like Fmodel or the game is loaded, you won't be able to turn them off because they're in use, like most files. So I'm going to name this 7085. Yep. And then I'll call this MMM Misty Night. And then I like to name it, give it a name that's kind of give me an idea where it's located or what I put it on. Yep. So normally I make this folder in the next steps, but since I was already in here and looking, I just made it. I'm going to go ahead and just name this thing the same thing up here. So let's go ahead and name it. There we go, easy. I'm going to open it up. The priority, I'm going to set to 1. The chunk ID, I'm going to use that 7085 because the title is just a title. It doesn't really do anything. We're not going to use apply recursively. If you click this, it will grab everything that is associated with whatever you have associated with this mod. So if I were to grab the IP and just put the IP in here, then it will grab the BCI, the CI, the BI. Perfect. Then it will grab the skeletal mesh. That's fine. Then it will grab the material instances. Also great. Then it grabs the parent material instance, which is a custom material right now. So it will crash your game. It will also then grab the parent of that parented MI, which is also a custom material, and that will crash your game. So don't use it recursively unless you know what you're doing. I'm going to write a guide about how to use it correctly, but don't click that. It's cook mode will be always cook. Keep in mind if you choose never cook because you don't want to cook your mod, you probably won't even get the package. It'll fail your packaging. So I don't know why that happens, but never cook is not an option that you can make use of. So always cook or just delete the data asset, or delete whatever's in the data asset if you really want to. Label assets in my directory is a common one. What this is going to do is it's going to grab everything that is in the folder where the data asset is located and any subfolders. So all of these are automatically going to be included in my mod. period. If I bring new stuff and drop it in here, that will go into my mod. If I take stuff out of here, that stuff won't be in my mod. Anything that's in this folder and any of the subfolders and subfolders, those will be included in your mod. What won't be included in this particular mod, using that method, is the IP, because I put it all the way over here. This is in a completely different folder. So I'm going to go to that folder, and I'm going to click a plus for explicit assets, which I already did, but I'm going to go ahead and just do it again. Click. And now I can load whatever assets I want to include in my mod. Search for them if I want to, or I can just drag and drop them, bring it in. Nice. I'm going to go ahead and save it. If I don't do that, it won't find it, it won't load, right? It's pretty simple. If you put, when you're checking your mod, make sure that the IP is actually attached to your mod. And that's pretty much it for the data asset. We're set to go right here. So now I should be able to just move forward and mod. If you want to, and I don't really suggest it, but if you want to, you can just explicitly name everything that you want included. But that will mean that if you want to exclude things, you have to manually exclude them. Another thing you don't want to do is this. Do not have an empty spot here. I've had situations where it will just mess things up because this is empty and it's looking for something. So don't do that. You can't, if you clear it, it's just clear and it's just a null, just so you actually have to delete it. If you use the trash can, it will delete everything in your explicit assets list. So if you're not trying to completely clear everything, don't use the trash can. But just a word of advice before you actually do it. So it's save. I'm going to go up here, go to Windows, and I'm going to package the project. If for whatever reason you don't have your mode set to shipping, make sure you do, so you can set it to shipping and then package the project. I have it set in my my settings, so I just use this option. That's it. It's going to go to a default folder, okay? That default folder is going to be like this. It's going to be your root folder. Just keep it at your root folder, and you'll be good to go. No need to put it somewhere else. Because now, if you want to, that's on you. But if you can't find your stuff later, that's also on you. Ugh. And so the goal of this section of the video is just to do a quick, messy rig, get it into Unreal Engine, and see if it works. I have not used Blender 4.2 a lot. I'm just recently switching over to it, building some new add-ons for it. So this is kind of like a test run for me as well. See if I still remember how to make a proper mod. And also this should help me determine if something needs to get fixed in the process or adjusted. In the past, I had to make adjustments for each version of Blender. It was super annoying. But it looks like things are working out a little bit better now. So this can take like a couple minutes. Like, I've got a lot of stuff that's going to cook through. Also, everything in your project is going to get cooked. So you'll notice as you start modding and doing stuff that if the more stuff you have, the longer the cook will take. Your first cook, if you haven't done like just the generic cook that I advised to do in the beginning, but if your first cook is this mod that you're making, it's going to take a while, okay? Because it'll be like it kind of like remembers everything. Once it's already cooked, it kind of moves a lot faster, and we'll spend more time on the newer stuff. But it won't be your entire engine. But the first time you cook, it will be the entire project from the very little tiny pieces to whatever you're putting into it. So keep that in mind. Oh, and you will need to use a chunk method. If you're not using a chunk method, you are going to run into issues. So make sure you've checked out the chunk section in my startup guide if you haven't, or you can check Google on how to set up chunking. And I think there's some guides also in the Modding Zaibatsu Discord you could take a look at. Guides are in a bit of flux right now. Everyone's trying to figure out what's the best way to get things done. Even if you watch a lot of my videos, you're going to see that there's things that I've changed since I started, things to go along. So take it for a grain of salt. I'll try to do more of these demos in the future. And once I really get this ironed down, like 100%, I'll try to do a lot. I'll do like a streamlined version of the videos where it looks more like what you would see in the content creator stuff. But for now, that's just what it is. So sorry I'm rambling, but I just gotta wait. We can watch the if you go to the output log, you can see what's happening. Look at that, all this data getting compressed and all this stuff happening. Don't be surprised. You'll see yellows and reds along the way. I'm not seeing any right now, but you most likely will. Look at all this stuff. Look, see, there we got some yellow warnings. Reds are errors. Warnings usually aren't so bad. Of course, red errors or whatever. And look, I got all this here. But at the end of the day, the only thing you care about is that you get this build successful. If you get your build successful, you're good to go. Alright, so where did your mod go? Right? Where in the world is your mod? So if you go back to your project folder, right? Not your mod folder, but your project folder. Let's see, I'm just going to where my project folder is located. Alright. To get to your mod, you're going to go to Windows, Polaris, Content, Packs, and then your mod will be whatever you named the chunk. So there it is, chunk 7085. I suggest make a shortcut so you don't have to do it all the time. So that's what I did. I have a shortcut. It takes me right there. I never have to go search for it. But I'm going to grab all of these, all three of them, right? You need the pack, the UCAS, and the UTalk. Copy. Let's go to wherever your mods are, which are going to be where you load your mods for the game, and put them in there. I use folders to separate all my stuff. Some people just name it whatever. I feel like folders is the easiest way to keep organized and help people who download your mods stay organized. They can do whatever they want to after they open up your zip folder. But here we go. Put it in there. I use all the things selected at the same time, and I hit F2, and I hit to the far right, and then I just write _P so that it is registered as a mod. And now I need to go ahead and open up Tekken, which I don't know if it's going to show up on this screen. So I'm going to go ahead and play, and we'll see if it worked. So what I'm hoping to see, and let me switch my switch this over to game capture. See if it'll capture it. Alright, looks like we're good. And so what I'm hoping to see is Nina looking a hot mess. But what I don't want to see is ridiculous distortion. What I don't want to see is my character in the T-pose. What I don't want to see is nothing. Not even when I load it in. So those are the things I'm hoping I don't see. Is it going to look good right now? Absolutely not. But let's get there. And my stuff is probably going to run really badly right now because of the way my stuff is set up. So please forgive me. I am probably going to reduce the settings. I am going to reduce the settings down to like trash settings. Just trying to help not caused my fire. Yeah, I know. My internet got shut off. Okay, so why didn't it get shut off? I get disruptions all the time. Okay, but first let's go into here. Oops, not community. Go into options. Graphics. Trash tier. Oh, it's already pre-trash. Alright, so never mind. I'm not going to change that. Alright, let's go to customization and character customizations. And now I set it to default Nina, which isn't necessarily always the best idea because it'll crash right away without me being able to check anything if it's broken. Unless I already have a mod, which I could open this one, but I'm going to start here. Alright, there we go. So, a couple of things that are both good and bad. So the good thing is the mod is loaded, right? The proportions look all crazy. They don't look nearly as bad while she's just standing still. They'll look worse when she starts moving. Look at that. My neck stuff isn't in the right place, blah, blah, blah. It's kind of ugly. But she's standing, and that's good. So this isn't all white, which is fine because I think my default colors are not necessarily the same. So, but what I am seeing is that it is not checkered. If it's checkered, right, then that means that it's not loading an actual material instance at all. It's just default, like world grid. So this means that my materials are meh, but everything is working, right? And we can go into mod, change the pose, and she should change poses. There we go. Her hands look all funky, but there she is, standing. Let's go ahead and watch one of these horrible animations. I mean, it's not super
What's
bad,
done is done.
but it's definitely not good either. Alright, cool. So, there we go. That's it. Our character is in the game. Looks like a hot mess, but it's in the game, and that's what you want. From this point forward, now we can go into the fixing. But before I go into fixing, I'm going to go ahead and take a quick break. And I will be back. Let me go ahead and switch this back to this. And so we'll go back here and we'll start playing with this in just a bit. Or you know what? I think I'll go ahead and end this video and then I will start the next step in the next video. Which actually might be tomorrow because I still got work in the morning. So yeah, that's what I'm going to do. So for now, that's it. That's all I got. We're going to go ahead and fix up Misty in the next video, and I'm going to focus on setting up good proportions and some of the tricks and tips that I can provide for setting up the mesh to work. Eventually, after that, we'll go ahead and get all the materials set up. Maybe in the same video, maybe in the next video, and see how they look in the game. After that, I think I'll move to what would I do if I actually wanted to use a common body and not just the MSL body. How would I go about fixing it? This add-on, I believe, is available. It does, the match rig portion, it does work. The consolidate UVs, I believe, still works. Channel packing doesn't work, and whatever. And the blend mode no longer works in 4.2, and the quick weight transfer isn't really good. All this thing right now is good for is the this match rigs option, and the consolidating UVs. But if you wanted to, you can grab it. Like I said, I do have a new add-on in the works that I hope to get out within the week, maybe two, based on my IRL schedule. But I've got some big plans. I got some big plans for some add-ons that are gonna really help. Uh, yeah, like it'll be exciting. It'll be good. And then if we get custom materials, that'll make things so much easier as well. I just hope people don't get super lazy with them, but whatever. People will do as they do. But for now, I'm gonna go ahead and shut this down. If you have any questions about this process so far, hit me up on Discord, and I'll do my best to assist. If you followed a different guide other than mine or what you've seen me do personally, feel free to ask me. I'll try to help you. But if that's what you did, I would suggest that you would probably be better off just asking the question in the general Modding Zaibatsu Discord. When we're available, we will help, as long as you're not an asshole. And most people are nice, so you shouldn't be anything to worry about. But I've said enough. It's time for me to go ahead and take a break. How long was this video, anyways? Where's the time? Where's the time? Hey, what up, Noble? Always love seeing you around. Where's the time? It doesn't show me the time anymore. I don't even know how long the video's been running. If I zoom, oh, does it show me anywhere else?